You do it. I'm on the road to Jericho. Oh, actually, we're past Jericho at this point,
yeah,
right?
we are
reached
in Jericho. We are about to break down the walls of Jericho right now. We're back in it. See what happens after that brief little respite away and seeing what was going on with Connor. Hello, I'm Connor. They
Hello,
make me
Connor. It's for the
speak this
nest.
way because it makes people very uncomfortable. Love that guy. Now we're back to Jess.
So
What's his name again?
What's that? Oh,
What's
we're
this
going
dude's
back
name?
to
Jesse?
oh fuck, Jesse Williams is the actor.
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna call him
Marcus.
Jesse now. Marcus, that's it. Marcus. Yeah, exactly. There we go.
Marcus.
All right. Oh, we should probably give some
Ready
back.
Player 2.
This is Ready Player 2, yes. People are like, what the fuck am I listening to? Did I just walk into a podcast in the middle? I don't even know what's happening. Yes, you did.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
A
16.
lot of drinking and chaos.
Exactly. It's going to get crazy. It's only going to get worse. If you don't like the first 5 minutes, whoopsie!
So the basic concept of this is Craig plays this video game and I heckle him while I drink. Well, we both drink.
Yes.
But no, I don't really heckle him. But I've played it before. This is a one-player game. We'll do others where it's 2 players. This is a one-player game, and yeah, it's a good video game. If you are a savage and you started with mission 16 for some reason, go back, listen to the other missions first. At least watch the gameplay part of it. Some of these go super long because we talk about it afterwards, but listen to the gameplay part and then get caught up.
Also,
right?
If you're the psychopath that actually tunes in just for episode 16 and starts from there, like, please tweet at us at Live Man Cave and let us know what is fucking going on with you. Like, what else do you do weirdly that I don't understand? Like, do you eat pizza starting from the crust? Like, do you what do you sleep outside?
A burrito like Justin Bieber.
Right. Do you sleep outside and then come inside, like when and play basketball inside your house? Like, what other weird fucking things do you do that don't make any sense to me? Because that's incredible, and I want to know more about it. But anyway, yes, start at the beginning and work your way forward.
Just so you guys know, we have a regular podcast. It's called Live from the Man Cave, and you can find it directly there at the website I just posted, or you could also download it from any major podcast app. And I'll post that in the room as well.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about what you're drinking or beer of the show before we get started?
We will also throw up. We can throw up the Discord information as well in case people care. It's just another place where you can go jump in, communicate with us. Whether it's specifically just about Ready Player 2, we have a whole section. We have our Barcode Gaming channel where you can go in and talk about Ready Player 2 and what you think about that. But also, you can there's a whole bunch of other channels just to talk about the actual podcast itself, or just anything going on, whatever you're interested in, TV shows you're watching, stuff like that. So that's a cool place to just communicate directly with us if you like what you hear here. So that's it. The other thing, as Jess did just mention, one of the reasons why all this stuff all came together is mostly because really we just want an excuse to be able to hang out more often and drink, right? That's pretty much the backstory to everything. If we distill it all the way down to nothing. So I guess I'll kick it to you first. We always have a very special.
You go first.
Oh, okay, you want me to go first? Then I will once again, for those of you walking into, as I just said, we always have our own beer of the show, or sometimes it's even been a liquor of the show. When Jess really wants to get spicy.
Or a spritzer of the show.
Right. So if you don't know, this is going to be a huge letdown for everybody because I am currently still in the middle of a dry month. I took the month of February off from drinking specifically because the holidays.
Oh, I thought you just meant no foreplay.
That too. Also that. Oh, there's a whole lot of dry months that are happening. It's just,
you were like, I
didn't know you were gonna say that to everybody, like on the internet and shit. Yeah. I stopped dry humping is what I meant by dry month. It's just no more dry humping because I'm a grown ass man now. I don't have time for that kind of bullshit. But it was chafing too much. No, but so I took
no more over the jeans hand jobs.
Handies, right? Yeah, they're really just painful. Eventually, you realize you're like, I'm not getting any pleasure from this. This can't feel good for you either. And by you, I mean my hand. Let's be honest. Anyway, so I have taken a break 1 month. 1 month taking a break because of all of the holidays and everything. This is a little inside joke, but all of the toxins that I ingested throughout the holidays. So I'm taking a little bit of a break from all that shit. And so I am
live from the MCU
yes,
to get that joke.
Live from the MCU. That's another little side project we have if we haven't already inundated you with enough shit that we do. But I'm taking a little break and switching over to a Soda Stream My soda
Soda
stream
of the show.
Yeah, soda of the show is mango ass water. That's what I'm drinking. That is, we discussed this last time. I am putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable, and I'm going to go with that it is mango ass water. Not that it's mango ass water. It is some mango ass water. So I'm going to try this. All it is basically a carbonated water with a half a teaspoon of mango flavor in it. So let's check this out.
I can't bring myself to put the hyphen between the ass and the water. So
you can't do it? You can't do it?
I'm just going to leave a hyphen out, and you put the hyphen where you want.
Wherever you feel comfortable adding it, you got it. You can add it between soda and stream. You can add it between stream and mango. You want it to be the soda, stream, mango, ass water? You could do that. You can do however you want, whatever you want. We leave that up to you. This smells mango as fuck is what I'm saying right now. This is some mango ass water. All right, I'm taking a sip. Oh, man, I'm going to get fucked up off this. This is delicious. I'm not gonna
I see now why you wanted to kick it to me first.
Yeah.
I completely forgot that you were going dry this month.
Exactly. I figured it'd be a lot less of a letdown for everyone if I was the end. I came up as the big pussy at the end and not leading it off. What a letdown these guys are. Everyone is already locked off. They're like, fuck these guys. All right, go ahead. So what are you doing?
Tune in for the big pussy at the end, and on the back of the T-shirt, live from the man cave.
It's a great T-shirt. I like it.
So this is where we just try shit on this show, right? We take our Beer of the Show very seriously on the main podcast. This is the one where I'm like, oh, I saw this fucking shit in the store, and So this one is out of season, but it's from it's from a brewer that I love, but it's really, really out of season at this point. But when I saw the flavor, I was like, I just really can't not pick it up because I love this flavor, even though it's fucking out of season. So what do you think I'm talking about here? Yeah,
pumpkin?
There's pumpkin in there. And the brewer is one that I know I love, and this is actually their least creative name for one of their beers that I've ever seen.
Is it Evil Twin?
It is Evil
Genius.
Genius.
Evil Genius.
Genius beer.
I knew because we've talked about them on the show many times that they are the king of amazing names.
Yeah, they're like the meatloaf.
Right.
What's the
I'll
other
have
one?
what she's having.
Yeah.
The Purple Monkey dishwasher. All kinds of crazy shit. Yep.
And then this one is just simply called Trick or Treat Chocolate Pumpkin Porter.
Yep.
It's ale brewed with cocoa, pumpkin, and spices. I'm guessing you've had this before.
I have had that one. Yes.
I don't remember drinking this one because this flavor is. I think I would have remembered it, but this looks amazing, and I just don't remember them having such a plain name on any of their beers. I would think they would at least put Trick or Treat, Smell My Feet, or something like that.
Right. That seems like something else they would normally do, considering half their names are incredibly long and or just so bizarre and weird. Trick or Treat seems like that just seems like literally being called pumpkin ale as far as they're concerned.
Right, or at least it could have been give me a treat or I'll show you a trick you'll never forget. It's a really long name for it, but that's actually a story from my childhood. You want to hear it? You got a minute to digress?
No, not at all.
I was a kid living in Brooklyn. Well, you're going to hear it anyway.
All right, yay!
I was a kid living in Brooklyn. I was a fucking little badass kid, and so my mother would take us around our apartment building to trick or treat, and that was literally so my mother wasn't expecting it. She brings me up to the door of an old lady, and I knocked on the door, and the old lady answers the door, and I'm to her face, trick or treat, give us a treat, or I'll give you a trick you'll never forget. And my mom was horrified.
Wow.
Embarrassed.
Wow. Did you just threaten to sexually assault that woman?
Well, I wasn't probably thinking sexually, but
just regular assault. Okay, cool.
Yeah, just regular
Sounds
assault.
Good.
I mean,
you're like, I'm not an animal.
I'm not an animal. That's good.
Just regular assault. What kind of a douchebag do you think I am?
Just beat her till she's unconscious. I'm not gonna Bill Cosby her after. So,
wow. All right.
Yes,
Thank God no one listens to this. Perfect. Nobody going to hear you said that.
Nobody knew about Bill Cosby at that time.
Right.
But I did. I was a prescient child. But yeah, anyway, so Trick or Treat chocolate pumpkin porter. For those of you that are like, you can't drink pumpkin out of season, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Drink whatever the fuck you want whenever you want. That's one of the beautiful things about beer is that everything can be in season whenever you're in the mood for it.
Exactly.
That can also be a T-shirt.
I mean, I'm guessing though, I guess yeah, actually, that would be a good T-shirt. But so let me ask you, because you're the beer connoisseur, you're a resident beer guru, I would say. Is there, when you get stuff out of season? So I'm imagining that this isn't advanced beer that they made for 2019's Halloween, right? This probably came from August of last year, something like that, is when this was probably brewed. So
yeah, sometimes. Typically it would be probably like around the end of the end of the summer into getting prepared for your October timeframe to start selling. Or although nowadays they even move it back as far as September, so you're being brewed in August for that time. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's I'm wondering, like, is there like does it taste worse now that it's been like half a year?
No, I mean no, because remember there's plenty of beers that you can cellar, and the heavier the flavor is, like you don't want to cellar an IPA or anything like that because they're made to be had fresh, and because the flavors it starts getting more bitter and kind of quote unquote like skunky, like for an IPA flavor.
Right.
But the more kind of full flavored it is, and by full flavor I mean like the more non bitter IPA flavor, but the more like kind of heavy on the malted side, or if it's going way more boozy, like something much higher on the boozy, boozy kind of alcohol flavor. I mean, not like boozy in terms of just high alcohol content.
Right.
Those can be cellared anyway. So for something to be like only 6 months old, it's not that big a deal. Like you're not really going to. Really, the bigger issue would be if it was one of those where it's like kept out and then somebody refrigerated it and then took it out and then refrigerated it again. Like that would affect it over time.
So those are my questions then.
Yeah.
So does refrigerating it help extend the shelf life then?
It depends. You don't want to necessarily you don't have to refrigerate it. It would be more that you want to keep it cool, and that's why that's why people say cellaring, right? Is because they literally mean like a wine cellar type thing, where people have like a beer cellar, and you keep it cool because you don't want it to be warm, but you don't necessarily need to keep it in a refrigerator cold. You just need to keep it cool, so like lower than normal room temperature.
If you refrigerate it, does that help or at all or not at all? Or does it make it worse than if you would have cellared it?
No, not really. It doesn't really help or hurt. It's more of the change in the temperature that really affects it more. So if you like cool it down, then it gets heated up, and then cool it down again, like that's bad for it. You don't necessarily you're not going to see that you'd get longer if you kept it in a fridge versus if you were just keeping it cool in a cellar. Typically what people would want to do is you keep it in the cellar cool, and you could do that for like a year or 2 or 3 years, right? I mean, we've talked on the podcast about, and we're going to do a thing talking about cellaring beers and so forth. But you can do taste testing where you cellar a beer for 2 or 3 years, and then when you're prepared to drink it, then you move it into the fridge because you just want to get it, get the temperature down to whatever. Also remember, some beers you can just drink straight out of cellar temperatures, right? There are certain beers that actually would tell you they'll be better at above refrigerated temperature but below room temperature.
That's that crazy England way of doing it.
I mean, English beers, they will straight up say like you could drink them room temperature, right? But they a lot of places that's a little bit too much for me. But there are a lot of beers that will say almost similar to you have like those wine fridges that have half red wine and half white wine. So it's like red wine is just below room temperature, and then white wine is like refrigerated. That section, there are certain beers that will recommend you put them into the red wine temperature section. So yeah, you wouldn't have it at like 65 degrees 70, or you wouldn't have it at like 70 degrees room temperature or something like that, but maybe at like 55-60 degrees would be good, and it'll taste better than getting it too cold, because getting it too cold can actually affect the flavor, in that you can cool off too much of, like, you won't be able to taste it as much, because that's why do people love Budweiser freezing cold, right? Because you actually don't taste most of it, because it's just all you taste is the fact that it's freezing cold and it's refreshing, and if you could just chug it down like water, but if you drink that shit at even close to room temperature, it's going to taste disgusting. So imagine something like that, but that actually has a really good flavor. You wouldn't want to put that in a ice cold fridge, because you're actually going to you're going to basically like lose some of that flavor, so you're actually better off having
cold beer is so good though. And
again, I'm not saying room temperature. We're saying like the difference between a 45 degree, right, a chilled beer, right, exactly. Like you're always going to want it to be cooler than if you just left it out like on your bar and then just popped it open and drank it, but you maybe don't want it to be like sitting in a 40 degree fridge or something like that, because that might not.
Well, I'll let you know, because actually these were probably in a 40 degree like little mini fridge, and so like they're really cold right now. So I'll start having them as they're really cold, and then I'll tell you if it gets better as they
that'll be
kind
interesting
of
to
warm
see.
up a little bit sitting in the room.
Absolutely.
But as I cracked it open, as I popped it open, the smell of cocoa and pumpkin definitely just hit my nose right away, and it was just like this beautiful blend. It smells amazing. And even now that it's been like, we talked after I popped it, like probably 3 minutes or something, it smells still just really. As I put my nose to the top of the bottle, I would use this as a freaking air freshener. Is how good that smells.
Nice.
So, you've had this before, right?
I have, yes. I really like that one.
So what'd you think? Nice. So I'm gonna take my sip of it.
Yep, I definitely enjoyed it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. It's smooth. Again, these two flavors of chocolate and pumpkin kind of. Oh man, how can I describe this? Because now the flavor is actually changing in my mouth.
Yeah.
So I would say first it's like the two of them are blended like a slow dance, and then in your mouth, then they kind of like the two dance partners of chocolate and peanut butter kind of back up and start doing their own thing, and the chocolate kind of takes the spotlight and starts doing the fucking the starlight moves,
right?
While the peanut butter fades more into the background. It leaves you with the cocoa aftertaste, but it's just so it's strong but smooth. So if that explains it, it's like really strong but smooth. It's not like I love it. I love this. Wow. This is one of the better pumpkin beers I've had, or beers involving pumpkin. I've had put this up there. Potentially, I mean, I'd have to taste Warlock again and Pumpkin, but I'd put this I'd put this on the same level.
Right, and so one of the things we've actually talked about, because I had for a while, I had the Warlock on tap right throughout the holidays into the new year, and one of the reasons why I do like this one is for some of the similar reasons why I like Warlock so much, is because we've all been kind of inundated with the pumpkin ales, and in a lot of ways they're still great. There's some excellent ones, but some of the beauty of the pumpkin porter is that that kind of that chocolate flavor taste, the porter kind of malty flavor goes so well as a counterpoint to the pumpkin, as opposed to they kind of stack on top of each other when it's an ale, right? It's like it can become too much, right? Whereas the porter is a nice counterpoint to it, and so I really enjoy that part of it, and that's why this one's so good, because we love Warlock because of that as well, and this one being a pumpkin porter, and then on top of that you add in the chocolate side of it, which gives you even a little bit extra flavoring to it, which is great. And just so you know, on their page, I was just looking this up. It's Trick or Treat is our pumpkin porter brewed with chocolate and spices. This is not your typical pumpkin beer by any means. This is a deep, dark, decadent, seasonal delight that is sure to warm you up as the weather starts to cool off. First, we brew our rich, robust porter that is spiced with cinnamon, clove, and nutmeg. Then we up the ante and make it truly our own by adding chocolate post-fermentation. Trick or Treat is a spicy, rich, unique, and full-bodied dark ale with all the comfort and warmth needed to survive the chilly and ever-lengthening autumn nights. And I actually like that they even say right there, which is also interesting, that they actually do add chocolate post-fermentation, because a lot of times beers that say like chocolate in them are just using like the roasted malts and stuff like that, because like the malts will tend to give off a kind of a chocolatey smell and sometimes even a bit of a flavor to it, even though it's not the actual chocolate, it's just the malt in and of itself. But sometimes, like obviously like in a beer like this, where they actually are adding chocolate, so you're getting even that more kind of decadent flavor to it, because it has that like that real chocolate, as opposed to the chocolate that's added because almost as a byproduct of the beer making process. So that's why that mix is so good, because you're getting actual pumpkin mixed with actual beer, or actual chocolate, I mean, which I think is pretty amazing.
So I just I just took another swig of this, and this time, right before I drank it, I ate half of a milk chocolate sea salt caramel made by Sanders Fine Chocolates. You
nice.
Find them at sanderscandy.com. The blend, eat these with like something like that, some milk chocolate like caramel.
Yeah.
And it's a nice pairing. At least it feels like a nice pairing right now.
That's awesome.
I picked the
really
good
month. Pick the wrong month to stop drinking. God damn it.
I will say though, for 7.7% ABV, which the water content seems a little high for me. Like it does not taste like a 7.7.
Okay, yeah, it's way more sessionable tasting than it actually is in the percentage. What does it taste more like to you? Does it taste more like a 5 or something like that?
Yeah.
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 That's cool.
Yep. So I would like you could at 7.7 and drinking this, you could get drunk really easily and not realize that you just down like I'm already almost through the entire first bottle.
Nice.
That's how like it, yeah. And I'm not trying. It's just it's so good that I'm sipping it through and it's like it's flowing like water. It's not overwhelmingly thick. So there's like a give and take to it, right? Because I probably as much as I can remember from our podcast episode 28,
right?
Right. La Mas Negra that we had was just it blows this out of the water from my memory.
Yeah.
And this is like a beer that I really love. I mean, I just told you this is possibly on level with Warlock.
Right.
I'm not sure because I think Warlock's probably still better in my memory because I'm not sure I really like the high water taste on the back end that much. But again, now I'm nitpicking, right? Because this is a great beer. And the Mas Negra just blows us out of the water in my memory.
Right.
But that one you could taste you were drinking like a 12%.
Right.
Or whatever that was. And this one feels like I'm drinking a 5.5, like something that they like it's supposed to be a sessionable beer that they, crafted for flavor rather than fucking you up. But this will fuck you up probably, man. 7.7 I think will get the job done if you have enough of these fast enough.
Yeah. So I guess the only other question I was going to ask you based on the flavor, this type of a beer can often turn into a thing, and I kind of feel like you've already answered it based on how quickly you said you almost downed this one. But this type of a flavor with all this stuff going on, with actual like the chocolate and the pumpkin and the cinnamon and cloves and all that kind of stuff happening in there, is this the kind of thing that you could also imagine yourself putting in like a goblet and sipping like after dinner as like a like a dessert drink, with a dessert or something like that, or with a coffee or something like that?
Yes.
Or is this something that you would
like
just
I just told you,
chug?
I just had the milk chocolate sea salt caramels with it, so I could definitely see. And in that case, if you're pairing it with like a thick dessert,
you'd be sipping on it. You think?
Well, no, because I just told you that the water, like you can taste the water in here.
Right.
So if you do a very decadent dessert, something that complements it though, like you wouldn't want to pile this on. Like that's I might correct myself, but because I'm not a food critic or whatever. So somebody might say, doing milk chocolate, sea salt caramel on top of chocolate pumpkin porter is just like a lot of the same taste, right? But I feel like if you had like a very like decadent raspberry dessert or something like that, and then or like some kind of like I don't know if a cheesecake would be the right thing, but something that's really like decadent but like really good tasting, and then you swig this would actually kind of like give you that refreshing like water that you're looking for to like break up some of the thickness of the dessert, but also a nice complement in the flavor. It's still like a robust flavor while there's enough water content.
Cool. Yep, that makes sense. That
makes sense. Yeah, I really like this as a sessionable beer.
That's cool. That's awesome. Nice. That sounds good.
That's all right. So I'm ready to. I'm already like completely almost done with the first bottle.
All right. You want me to jump into this, and you can go grab another one and get ready to go?
I've got 3 already lined up.
You're lined up and ready to go. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Here's our hot helper friend. She's ready to lead us into the next chapter, where we are going to jump right into Jericho, I believe. Right? I'm assuming. We're gonna. I mean, it ended
in the last chapter. It ended. Yeah, well, he was in Jericho.
Yeah,
right.
When I took the leap of faith and I jumped in, and then there was like
you were surrounded by androids saying like, "Welcome to Jericho."
Children of the Corn people were all like looking at me like, "Welcome to Jericho." I was like, "Ew, get the fuck out immediately! This is where you get murdered." Oh, there they are. Fuck. All right, let's see what happens here.
Oh, 7.8% ABV.
Yep. Who are you?
I missed the 0.1.
Fugitives. Just
like now you're gonna be real fucked up.
My name is Josh.
I'm someone's gonna fuck you.
North.
No, do I have to remember all these people's names?
that extra point's gonna fuck you.
This is Jericho?
Fly for the man cape.
It's a refuge for those who don't want to be slaves anymore.
Come on, Jesse. All right, let's see.
I don't understand. I thought Jericho was a place where androids lived in freedom.
We do live in freedom.
Oh, we're
It may not be what you hoped for, but here we have no master.
Oh God, we're like
don't belong
super
to anyone.
homeless. That does not seem fucking appealing at all.
How many are you?
There are 19 of us still in working order. The rest were damaged escaping their masters.
Many tried to reach Jericho.
Jericho's a shithole.
Humans have little pity for our kind. I understand how you
Do you
feel,
recognize any of these
but
actors?
we have more freedom here
Some of
than
them
you
look
ever did.
familiar. Like that dude looks familiar, but I don't know who he is. Let's see.
Humans were your
And the
masters,
chick
and now
looked
it's fear
famous
that
to me
rules you.
too.
Yes.
Yeah, the North.
You're no
Girl who said
freer
North.
than you ever were.
She
With the
is
one
my
arm?
favorite
Yeah,
actress
hanging
or
off?
actor
Yeah.
in the
Found a new
whole.
master.
You're lost. Just like the rest of us. We didn't ask for this. All we can do now
Let's see.
is deal with it.
Oh, he's got the eyes. He's scary eyes.
You're safe here. You can stay with us as long as you want.
Is he the same model as the dude that
Go and
you
see Lucy.
got shot on the roof?
She might be able to help.
Wait,
you.
who?
white
is she?
dude?
Who is she?
Who's North? We'll talk about her later after.
Okay, yeah. Is who the same model?
I love her. She's great.
Man, oh God, scary. Oh God.
Humans are afraid of dying too.
Oh God, you're horrifying.
Do you know what happens after death?
Oh God.
No.
Stop talking.
No,
to her.
I
She's
don't.
scaring me. She's scaring me.
Well, I'm about to find out.
Oh, that sucks.
What's your name?
Marcus.
Marcus. Oh God. Oh, she is fucked up.
I was glad to meet you, Marcus.
Wait, are you gonna die right now? What the fuck? Oh, she did. Weird. Oh, weird. Oh, that was awkward timing.
So I'm just gonna take my hand back
Yep,
now.
I'm just gonna back away slowly. She's like just stayed alive long enough to be like, yo, what's up, Marcus? Alright, peace out. I'll
Peace.
catch up with you later, son. Oh, they're just standing there waiting for me to walk around, I guess. Oh, nope. Nobody else is talking to me. Just the dying lady, I guess. Oh, that's cool. That was.
So I'm guessing the fires are just for, not for warmth, but just to be
Yeah.
able to still see each other.
Yeah,
What was your function before
maybe
coming
just to
here?
feel normal.
Possibly.
I know her. Oh, why are you being so shitty to me, North? I asked you a question.
Who found this place?
Nobody knows anymore. Whoever he was, his body's probably laying somewhere on this boat.
Fun conversation, thanks.
He's
You're
in
awesome.
pretty bad shape.
You're awesome, North.
That's how the humans treat those who disobey. They despise us.
What was your occupation before this? I was a handball champion. So I'm throwing this tennis ball against the
You
fuck.
came here for
I gotta stay in shape, Marcus. Get the fuck out. This ball's not gonna throw itself. Okay, North. Good times.
She's very reassuring.
Yeah. I was like, hey, who are you? She said, fuck off. I was like, hey, where'd you guys find this place? I don't know, he's probably dead. And then I was like, what's going on over here? Fuck you! Alright, good time, North. Oh, they look weird. Is that how androids sleep? Because it's creepy as fuck. Man, no wonder humans don't like androids. They're weird and creepy. When left to
Stand
their
in the
own
corner.
devices.
They don't sleep. They don't have to
Yeah.
sleep.
I know. They just stand
So they're
off.
just like, well, there's nothing for me to do right now, so I'm just gonna stand here.
Ah, it's so beautiful that we sleep at least then, because that's what we would be doing, just standing in the corner like fucking a horror movie. Cyberlife, warehouse, and docks. West Torrance. Okay.
Just try meth and see what happens when you don't sleep for a week.
Right. Calculating route. Okay.
Like vacuuming at 4 in the morning.
Right. Just doing it just for fun.
Getting it all done.
Alright, get over there, do that, light another fire. I'm expecting North to yell like, "Stop! The humans will find us!" Just gonna get mad. Oh, they're being weird. Writing that RA9 bullshit that I don't understand yet, so I fear it because I don't understand it. That's the right way to handle it, right?
It looks like the Joker wrote that.
It did. It was like, why so serious? Is the kid dead? What's going on?
They threw him out when they didn't want him anymore.
Yeah.
He was living on the streets before we brought him here.
Oh, weird.
They'll all shut down if we don't find a way to help them.
To help them, we need blue blood and biocomponents. We salvage what we can from those who shut down. But there's never enough.
That seems weird.
How do they survive?
They're like, we think we're alive, but like we salvage parts from the ones who died. That would be like,
we're slowly.
I'm just gonna eat these dead humans because I gotta stay
We
alive.
do it? No, we do that.
Well, oh yeah,
Right?
you're right. You're right. Yeah,
you
you're
need-
right.
you
Good
need
call.
a kidney?
Yes, true. Very true. You're right. We do that definitely. I guess like, but I don't actually just walk up to the body and like yank a kidney out and throw it in. Like we kind of disassociate a little bit. Whereas like here it seems like there's no disassociation because they just walk right up and handle it themselves. Hey, what's up? What's happening, hot stuff? How you doing?
They haven't figured out how to make it a billion-dollar industry yet.
They have 19 of them, so it's not like they have a ton of people that they can. I'm the doctor. Oh God, you're the worst. You're the worst.
Sit down.
Put your head back on, Lucy.
She looked good until she turned her head.
Yeah, Jesus. Did you ever see, what was the name of the movie, Ex Machina?
No.
With Alicia Vikander, the one from Tomb Raider. She played the robot. That's how she looked in part of the movie. It was like they did that like half a head thing, which is.
And you were like, still smash.
Well. Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah, you're like, oh wow, she's super hot.
This chick will give you head, and you can see your dick on the other side of her mouth,
popping out of her brain. Yeah, and you're like, I mean, I'm not against it. It's
weirdly hot. Weirdly hot.
Adds like an extra layer of hotness. All right. Oh, this is the blue blood. Here we go. It's in a little CyberLife container. I like that. I wish there was a button that I could be like throw it against the wall. Fuck your blue blood shit.
And to do burning money in the club.
Exactly. All right, that was weird. Now, look how he just ice grilled her and then stood up. That was amazing. He stared at her real weird and then was like, "I'm gonna stand up now." Marcus is weird sometimes. Have we established, and I just don't remember what happens when their hands go like that, like when it like fades back?
It's a way that they've been communicating with each other, where they can like back up. I think the dude in the bus stop first did it.
Yes, you're right. That's how he gave me
Cara.
where I needed to go. Yes.
Lives in
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
Your heart is troubled. A part of shadow and a part of light.
Oh, she's talking some religious shit now.
Which will prevail? Your choices will shape.
Oh God.
It's like she's a fortune teller, but like we know that they can pass information.
I know. She doesn't have to say all this. She can just share it with him directly. She also is very much like the Oracle in the Matrix.
Yes.
Let's see. Propose a plan to Simon.
She just kind of told him he's the one, though.
Yeah.
So your choices will determine our destiny.
Right.
Neo.
Yeah.
And then he has to say, "I know Kung Fu."
Whoa.
By the way, This might be something we may be discussing on a future podcast, but Will Smith recently put out a YouTube video explaining why he turned down The Matrix. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I did not see that. I want to watch that badly.
I saw the video. I saw the notification of the video or the article about it, but I didn't see the actual video yet.
Oh, we should watch that together
then.
Yeah.
What happened to you?
Let's see what happened to this guy.
They tied me to the back of a car.
Oh, that's some fucked up
I
shit.
think they wanted to have fun. I don't want to shut down. No. I don't want to shut down.
Tied me to the back of a car. That's like...
Yeah, so that's what they've done. Obviously, they've done it racially, and they did it to gay people, too.
Yeah.
So that's a common thing. That's a common way to... common hate crime method.
Yes. Yep. Dehumanize. All that shit. Oh. Oh, I thought she was walking over to talk to me. I thought some shit was gonna go down.
Start that fire, Billy Joel.
Yeah, I did start the fires. Here we go. That's the last one, I think. Oh, there's something else. There's that guy. I thought there was something over here, but maybe not. Love how look, he clearly does not know how to use a flashlight because he's like, let me just aim the flashlight off to the side in the direction I'm not walking. He's like, it's helpful over there. Dummy. Dumbass Marcus.
That's what the cool kids do.
Just fucking use it like a rave party.
Yeah, I throw a light to the side for effect. So you can see my silhouette approaching.
Yeah, that's how he throws shade. Flash it off to the side. Here we go.
Simon.
What's up, Simon? You weirdo.
I know where we can find
so this is the guy I was talking about before. Isn't he the same model as the first dude that you
dude shot in the head,
The docks are guarded.
Shot
We
in
can't
the
just
cheek.
walk in there and take what we want.
I forget what that guy's name was.
Why we won't ask permission.
You're right.
We don't have any weapons. And even if we did, none of us knows how to fight.
We can steal what we need without fighting.
We'll just get ourselves killed.
Maybe. But it's better than waiting here to be shut down.
I'm with you.
Nice. North is on fire. Who the fuck
Maybe
is
it's
she?
worth a try.
It's bothering me. Simon's neutral. Everyone's getting neutral. Let's all get neutral together.
Okay.
That's a sex then. Oh, is that it? All right. Wow. One. Wait, did I just really do 100%? I did 100%. There was not a whole lot of stuff to miss, I guess. So, good job. Finally.
Okay.
Okay, so this is how we always do it. We go and walk through the decisions that I just made. First thing I will do is switch over to the world stats so we can see.
World stats.
World stats. So, anything before we go through this that you wanted to mention, or?
Yeah, let's talk about the actors or whatever.
Yes.
So you wanted to know where North was from.
Yes.
So I'll pull up the IMDb page to supplement, but I first came into contact with her, I first became aware of her, rather. Yeah. Remember the old show, the TV show Friday Night Lights?
Yes.
You ever watch it?
Yes.
She was the girlfriend of the quarterback that got crippled.
Crippled. Yes. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I remember. Wow. So okay, that's
super hot.
Yeah. That's a bit ago, in terms of, when that show was on. So I wonder how old she is now. But okay, that's cool.
No,
yeah,
she was already an adult at that time. She was playing a teenager, but she was clearly an adult.
She was amazing though. She was super hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Nice. Very cool. Okay, so is there anything else that you know her from more recently?
I've seen her in some other stuff, but she, to me, I will just say, she's girlfriend experience to me. She has a way of I think she's absolutely, Minka Kelly's her name. She's absolutely beautiful.
Minka Kelly, yes, yes.
I'm actually I'm surprised that she didn't blow up more than she did, just because she has beautiful looks. Everything about her, her whole presence is just sensual. It's I don't know. She has almost a sincere, a sincerity in her eyes. I don't know if that describes it well. By the way, trivia about her: she's the only. I didn't know this until just seeing it on her page. She's the only child of former Aerosmith guitarist Rick Dufay.
Oh,
and
wow.
Maureen Kelly, an exotic dancer and single mother who often moved her daughter to different communities before settling in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yeah, all right, perfect.
So she's been in. Let's see, before this, you might recognize.
She was in Parenthood. She played an episode of Entourage.
She was in Lee Daniels the Butler as Jackie Kennedy. Oh
Nice.
wow, she's much hotter than the real Jackie Kennedy. But yeah, she was in Parenthood the show.
Apparently in the show Titans right now, which I don't know about that, but she's in that right now.
She never made it, man. She never really made it. Like if you look at her movie or pedigree, she's like 500 Days of Summer is the first thing listed, and she played, which was a great movie, but she played Girl at Interview.
Right. Yeah, I know.
So
that made me excited too when I saw it. I was like, oh shit, she was in that. I love that movie. And then when I saw her role, I was like, oh okay, cool. You were.
But I'm really I'm disappointed that she says she's 1980, so she's getting into her older years. She still looks stunning, amazing, and I'm just
the thing I know her
she's
most.
A good actress.
Right. The thing I know her most from actually is that she was that she dated Derek Jeter for a while. They were together.
Oh, did she? Oh,
I think for 4 or 5 years or something like that. I'm sure it's probably in her page somewhere.
Lucky him.
Yeah, he dated her for a while before they ended up breaking up and whatever. But so that's she's super hot. I mean, she looks. I could tell from the game that I knew her, and that's pretty awesome. So good for her, man. This is actually her only game. It looks like the only game she's ever been in.
Yeah.
So that's.
I hope to see more. I mean, I don't know. This game's been out now for what, a year?
Yeah, about a year.
I think hopefully it helped put her back on the map, or maybe land some other suit, but not really, because I'm looking at the IMDb thing. She's in a short. She's in something called She's in Portland.
Yep.
Titans, the TV series. Oh, I guess that was somewhat big, right? She was dubbed in Titans
right now. Yeah, that's happening right now. It's still on, I believe. So
I guess at least she's just finding regular work. Nothing real big, but I mean, I think she's just one of those actresses that really, really resonates. She reminds me of a white J-Lo, kind of the way that she talks, her presence, face-wise, I like her a lot. I would have liked to have seen her in more things, but she's probably on the backside of her career now, and it's a shame.
Yep. No, that's awesome though. Good for her. Maybe. I mean, I think the video game thing is a decent option, right, for people now. Obviously we've even talked on the podcast itself about how things are skewed, or have been in the past, skewed towards women as they get older. It's a lot harder for them to find roles that aren't intentionally made for you're the mom or you're the grandma or something like that. Whereas guys can, you can be a 50-year-old and they'll still be yeah, we'll put you against this 30-year-old female lead, and it's believable that you date each other, because who cares, because we're sexist and we just assume guys age, it doesn't really bother them, whereas women were oh, put her out to pasture because she's over 34 or whatever. But I do think video games give a decent alternate path, right, to follow and to do more things, because now with all of this stuff, right, the motion capturing and everything, you can stay involved and act and do some of these parts, which are nice fillers in between those roles. As obviously, I mean, theoretically things are supposed to be getting better, that women are supposed to be getting more roles and so forth, as we're not really discriminating against them from an age standpoint, or at least that's what we try to tell ourselves. But hopefully this could be a nice alternate path for her, right? Because maybe she is finding, hey, this is pretty easy and I can just go in and do some good lines, and then this helps me get other roles as well, maybe in TV shows or movies or whatever. So we'll see. Maybe we'll see her pop up a little bit more. We're starting to see more actors and actresses, once they get into this world, the world of doing voiceovers and motion capture, are starting to be a little bit more comfortable with it. Whereas, go back 5-6 years ago, it was a big joke. They would look at it almost ew, why would I ever lower myself? Almost the same way
you could make a paycheck here doing this.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And now, because the view or the look, the look of the motion capture can look so good that it's still also recognizable that it's you. So it's not you're slumming it and you're just doing a voice for Halo, Sergeant number 7 or something like that. You can actually just basically be you're credited as yourself because it's your likeness and everything about it. So it's a lot more legit than it was before, where you felt like you were just playing, some other character that no one would ever really know it was you unless they watched the credits or whatever. So I think it's pretty interesting.
That is a great
to see
point.
what happens. But anyway, all right, cool.
The other guy, by the way, the black dude you pointed out, his name is Josh in the game.
Yes.
His real name is Parker Sawyers. I don't think he's in anything that you really recognize, unless you watched Lilyhammer, the series on Netflix way back in the day, which I did, but I don't remember him from it. So he was in like one episode of that. Apparently he was an interrogator on Zero Dark 30, the movie, but interrogator on monitor. So he's played a bunch of little roles that you probably wouldn't remember. Notably, I mean, he did play Barack Obama in what's this called? South Side with You, the film, 2016. He was on the TV series Deep State. I don't know if you ever watched that. I don't know, just nothing. Yeah. I like the actor though in this video game. I like them all. Like I thought the actors in this video game they did a good job. So happy with that.
The young Barack Obama thing seems pretty cool, but that'd be interesting to see that.
So I got 90%. You got 100. Nice.
Nice. All right. Finally. Beat you.
So I got all the ones that you have, like talk to the dying android, talk to Josh, talk to North, talk to the damaged android, and then whatever's underneath, talk to the damaged android. I didn't get.
Let there be light. So I lit all of the fires. Yeah, so you missed that. And that's the lowest one of those 5 things, because that one's 85%.
Yeah, right, 85.
So it's 91 for the talk to the damaged android, 94 talk to North, talk to Josh. So this episode, if you want to do a kind of a flashback to the earlier episode, like actually the first episode, this was probably the most right in my wheelhouse of like my completionist thing, where I was like, you saw I did the scan. I scanned and looked around and was like, every little thing that lights up, I want to go try to do it before the story kind of pushes me along. And so this one allowed me to trigger that little OCD in my brain that was like, cool, I think I did everything I need to do. So yeah, it paid off in the one episode.
I was disappointed in seeing this one because I thought it was. I didn't realize it was. I forgot that it was this short. That it's just like making the decision to go do what you're going to do, and then I thought you were actually going to go carry out what you decided to do.
Yeah, this one was like 3 minutes. I mean, it was literally like 5 minutes. I think, like total. Yeah. Like I mean, like if I had known what to do, I probably could have done that thing in like 2.5 minutes, because I was spending time just walking around to see what else I could do. It was pretty. This one was one of the shortest ones in terms of actual gameplay. So then it says right there. So talk to Lucy was 99%.
Yeah, we still made it last. It's probably going to be an hour when this is all said.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
but for those of you that tuned in, you got some good beer conversation.
Exactly.
And some other, some good conversation about my young days in Brooklyn, threatening old ladies.
Just assaulting older women. It's amazing. The more things change, the more they stay the same, Jess. All right, so check the empty crate and talk to Lucy. 99% of people did both of those. So
who's the fucking 1% fucking idiot?
Who's like Lucy, go fuck yourself.
Might be the guy that quit in the middle of the chapter.
Yeah, the power went out. The power went out, and he was like, fuck it, I'm not going back to it. And then talk to Simon. Everyone had to do that. And then Marcus hatched a plan. So the only one that I was able to get 100% on is where I just had to walk around and talk to everybody and light
so
some
little
fires.
choices on this.
And I was able to nail it. Well done, CraigMakk. Public opinion
for most
skeptical.
chapters, you can't get 100% anyway.
Right.
Because they're branches.
Yes, this was no branching. It was all, just shot off of things you could have done or not done. But I scratched all of the itches that needed to be scratched in this episode to get to where we needed to go. So now Marcus is a badass. He's like, fuck that. We don't have to ask them. We're going to go take their shit. So I like that he got
So there is some stuff to unpack on here. I would say, first, there's the references to, we already discussed, the lynching tactics that have been used, not against just minorities, but, I mean, most notably against black people in this country. And then those same techniques have been used for every other minority that faces this kind of oppression. And that's why, again, this is like my answer to like people that watch this go, oh look, he's just doing this. David Cage again, just referencing, this is basically just a metaphor, like a thinly veiled metaphor for what people do to black people, and this is the Underground Railroad that they're in Jericho. Like, yeah, but that happens. History does repeat itself, and unfortunately it continues to repeat itself. It's not just, this didn't just happen to black people. There have been other groups that have been persecuted in the past, and these techniques unfortunately continue to be tried and true with the oppressors, right? Jews were attacked, and they had to use these tactics to find a place of refuge in a shitty matter where, like, whereas you or I might be worried about, well, what am I going to do with my leisure time? Like, these motherfuckers are just happy to sit in a corner and not get fucking burned with, fucking whatever their oppressors want to burn them with. Yeah. So I don't have a problem. I still don't see. I don't know if you felt that way. Like, this is like beat you over the head with, oh, well, this is just me just taking things or ripped out of the newspaper. Because you cannot, I have yet to see a group in history that's being oppressed that doesn't face all of these same things. Because people just go back to that. They're dragging, I hate this person, I'm going to drag him from the back of a fucking truck. Or a car, or I'm going to do these fucking horrible things. I'm going to abuse them physically, and I'm going to, make them feel horrible about themselves. And then, and the only way out is for these people to form a network and support each other, and escape.
I mean, so the only thing I would say about that is, specifically in this case, like the dragging behind the back of a car is so most notably first thought is like attacks on African American, that
and gay people.
It is a lot with gay people. No, it is also done to like anyone in the LGBT community, but specifically because like the first thing that that people would probably think about is the fact that it was the utilization that was done during like Jim Crow, dragging behind the back of like the pickup trucks and shit like that. Like, it was the secondary version of lynching. It was like you either lynch somebody to a tree, or you lynch, literally hung, dragged them behind the back of a car. And so, yes, you're right. It was done also to like anyone in the LGBT community. Like it was done to gays quite a bit. But I think it is one of those things where it's the primary thing that, at least to me, jumps to my mind, and just from a historical standpoint, is it goes down one of those paths where it's like maybe semi-unfortunate choice of the thing to do because it is so directly tied to, like first thought being, like blacks, that it almost would have been maybe a little bit better for the point of to try to make it not feel like the kind of analog to slavery or analog to, to racism. Choose just any other thing, like anything other than either hanging or dragging behind a car, because any other form of torture, you could have said like, yeah, that's been done to,
yeah, but they've done that though, right? Like, we've already had, we've had other instances. We've seen what happened to these androids before, like that one dude that let go on, like he was beaten with a bat until he finally turned around and stabbed the dude.
No, I agree. I guess you're right. I guess the one thing is so from my point of view, not from my point of view, the argument against it is just that you're right. They did all these other things, but let's say they did all these other things where they said, oh, he's been beaten by a bat and he's been, they've been, they've been just like assaulted out in front of the store or whatever, like just regular kind of beatings, right? Attacking, stuff like that. And then on top of that, let's just say then another thing they threw in was men with white sheets on, like threw them up to a cross and then hung them from a tree. Right? If they did that,
the Klan wasn't against androids. I mean, unless you
I'm giving an example. I'm making an extreme example where I'm saying, even if you did that, all of the other things that you did where you said, oh, but look, they also get beaten with bats and they get beaten with hammer, wouldn't take away from the fact that, but then you also did the thing that shows that it's a direct analog to the mistreatment of blacks. So you don't get to say, oh, no, but look, we also did all this other stuff, because the point is like, well, then why did you feel the need to really hit the nail on the head and say, and then also look, they do the exact thing that white people did to black people? So that's my bigger issue here is it's like, yeah, you were doing a good job before showing just general mistreatment. Why didn't you stick with that instead of then saying, in case you didn't get what I was saying before, check out what they're really doing to them, which is what white people did to black people? It's like it's the times where David Cage is with the parts where I start to feel like he doesn't feel like either he doesn't trust us that we can pick up on the nuance is A, and B, which in some ways I think might be equally or probably equally as plausible, is that he doesn't maybe feel as comfortable telling the story, like, so he has to kind of drive the point home, is like he goes that one step beyond where you're like, no, we got it already. We knew what you were doing. We understood it. We kind of figured it out because we're smart. You didn't need to be like, no, get it. Like, it's like they're black. It's like, no, I got that. Like, we figured out what you were doing. You didn't need to pound it home. Again, that could just be my interpretation. I'm not saying that you feel the same way. I mean, I know you don't, and that's cool. But it's one of those things where I'm like, I almost feel like it's better if you leave that part unsaid and just let us connect the dots, because that allows us to feel like, hey, we're all kind of writing the story together, as opposed to being explicitly told the link that I kind of already intuited on my own. I didn't need you to really say, like, you know, let me drive that point home for you. But that's the only thing about that.
And here's just my quick counter to that is that remember that it's all about know your audience, right? And if David Cage thought that everybody that played this game was going to be educated about, you know, the history of some of this stuff in our country as it stands now, you know, then I would say, yeah, then that's unnecessary, and why do it, right? But again, remember, this is a major sold video game that is probably going to be played not only by a bunch of adults that have no clue about some of this stuff. They really just haven't taken the time to educate. Like, yeah, it's hard to imagine that you don't know about lynchings coming from the back of a pickup truck, but a lot of people, we've talked about this in prior shows, a lot of people, if they're just if you're racist, or if you're somebody that's just not, you're just like, well, I'm white in America and I don't have to worry about that. So honestly, it's not that I hate black people, but I'm just not educated on shit because it really just doesn't interest me. It doesn't affect me, and it's morbid, and I don't want to deal with it. Right? So these people are not that, you know. So it's a learning, especially especially if you're a kid or a teenager and you're playing this game, right? So it might strike you, they're like, fuck, they dragged them from a pickup truck, and then later you go and learn that shit actually happened to people in this country, like black people or gay people, just because of what they were. You know what I mean? Like that might actually end up hitting you hard and educating you in a way. So I do agree. I don't have a problem at all with that.
I do agree. I guess the only difference I would say about that, or the only point I would make about that, and I do agree, there is value to, like, hey, if this game in general it gets somebody to pick up a book and, like, or pick up their phone and Google, like, that shit and learn about it, then that already is worthwhile. And so I do agree with that.
Or when they come across, like, it in another circumstance, oh fuck, just like in that
game. Exactly. Yeah. Now I understand the links of what he was talking about. And you're right, there's value to that, because from an education standpoint, that part is valuable. But the other thing I would say, and this is just kind of it's the counterpoint, or the other argument to all this, right, is like, so there's a difference between if you are writing, let's just say literature, right? Like you're writing a story. There's a difference between if you write a nuanced work of art where the story is in the space between the spaces, right? Where it's like that you leave it up to the reader to, like, kind of figure things out and make connections to understand things, and then have that, like, aha moment where they're like, oh shit, I get it. Like, this is what he was trying to talk about, right? This is what this story meant. This is the connections that I'm making. Versus if you are writing let's say like a high school textbook, where you are saying, you're not intuiting anything. You're not making connections about anything. You're not forming the nuance yourself. I'm just telling you, like, here's the War of 1812, and here's what happened in, you know, like, here's the Civil War, and here's what, like, you're just learning about it. And so I'm not saying that either one of those is good or bad, or is I'm not saying either one of those is better than the other. What I'm saying is it's hard to do both. And it's hard to do one but pretend to do the other. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of have to choose. Like, are you telling a work of art? Are you telling a story that is nuanced and allowing the player to come along for the journey and interpret things differently, and then have those conversations afterwards that are like, well, I thought this meant this, and this to me really hit me because of this meant, like, and like when he said this, he was talking about this, but it was layered. It meant 4 different things. Like there was all these different layers, double entendres to the meaning of that stuff. Or are you just literally saying, here's a thing where we're just telling you about Jim Crow, but we're just telling you about it in the year 2030, where like instead of them being black, they're just androids, but it's like it's just an educational piece. You can choose one or the other, but it's kind of like I feel like a lot of times he tries to dance between doing both, and that doesn't come across the same way all the time to me, because it's like,
yeah, I definitely agree. He's going for a happy medium. He's going for like, hey, those of you that will appreciate the reference are going to have to deal with me being a little
explicit
more
to the other people. Exactly. Yes.
Right. But I would also say is I would be more in the camp of like, yeah, it's kind of like not that great story. Like it's banging you over the head. If it was only one group that had faced this kind of thing, and it was like this metaphor for like this whole thing is just supposed to be this one group. But I think that this fits, like I've said before, I think this fits neatly in that any minority, especially in the United States, at some point that is oppressed will have to deal with these same techniques because they just keep coming up. So I almost feel like if you avoid them and you don't have people getting dragged by pickup trucks, and you don't have like underground railroad type of ways to escape this kind of oppression, and you don't have like the rioters in the street fucking going from peaceful protest to like breaking into violence and all that stuff, then it's the opposite where why wouldn't you have that? Those techniques keep happening in history to different people.
I guess it's more the thing then comes down to, and that's the part that I actually probably agree with you the most, is that the issue comes down to in my opinion, and I'm not saying that you have to agree or that anyone else has to agree, but in my opinion, not that he's not telling a good story, but a better storyteller would be able to make those same links, but in a way that was more nuanced and a little bit less on the nose and a little bit more like, oh shit, okay, I get it. So this is basically like the Underground Railroad, or oh, this is basically like what happened. Like I would make those connections, and I would feel like, oh shit, that was brilliant. The way he did this was to like it's small little things that make me realize, oh, so this is what this really was. Versus when he's just straight up like, oh no, motherfucker, there's no question. It's literally called the Underground Railroad to get to Jericho. like he's like, there's not a moment where he's leaving anything for you to like figure out, and that becomes where you're literally just like you're taking a story that exists and you're just changing 5 words. He's like mad-libbed 5 words out of it and replaced it with androids and the year 2030 or whatever it is, and like the rest of it is identical. And that to me is, I'm not saying it's bad, it's just significantly less like impressive than if he had done. If he had done it more grand, like, oh fuck, like when it was over and I was like, oh shit, I got, like that was amazing. Like he just taught me an entire lesson about, like about the way that we mistreat one another in a way that was like, I almost didn't realize it was happening until it was happening, and then I was blown away by the way he told it. That would be way more impressive to me as a storytelling, technique or whatever. But again, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's like, it's
I get what you're saying. It's like there is a blueprint. It's like he followed the blueprint from real life and just told it in a video game, which nobody's done before in this way, but for video games rather. But you're saying it's not as impressive because it was kind of already laid out for him. Mm-hmm. So I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, but otherwise, I mean, I there are parts of it, I think, like we've talked on the show already, there are parts where when he gets out of his own way and takes more chances, there are parts those are the parts that I have straight up said on the show, like, oh, that was fucking cool. Like that was the way he did that, like the way when it's not on the blueprint, when it's not just like substitute this word for this word, but everything else is the same, are the moments where I'm like, oh, that was actually really fucking cool, because he's just telling his own story and kind of getting a little bit away from the, insert this here and this here, but everything else remains, history in the 1960s or history in the 1860s or whatever. Like, those are the parts that are more impressive. And so it makes, when these moments happen, like the drag behind the car thing, where I'm like, fuck, like, dude, you were doing it, and then you fell back on the, like, you didn't believe that we were following along with you, or you didn't believe that you were good enough at it, or you were going to the lowest common denominator. And what happens when you go after the lowest common denominator? You're always by nature going to leave off the people above that. Like, the people above that are always going to feel like, yeah, I get it, but, like, I'd rather you make something separate for them and make the thing for me, because if once I start feeling like I'm just reading a kid's textbook, I'm always going to feel like, fuck, okay, yep. I mean, that's
and
cool.
What I feel about this game is that I think what he did well for a game that's supposed to be mass market successful is, I think there is something for both. In this, right? There are going to be those moments where somebody who's not educated about people being dragged in pickup trucks, watch this and go, that's really fucked up. And then later they go, oh shit, you mean that really happened? And on that level, I feel like it would be irresponsible not to talk, to have this kind of struggle of oppressor versus oppressed, and not have some kind, the formation of underground railroads, or not mention, these horrible things that have happened to people, not draw these same examples that will probably, that have repeated themselves over history, and at the same time, then there's other times, like you said, that where it'll be more nuanced, and you'll be like, oh shit, he did that really well, he surprised me. So I think this, and by the way, as we've discussed, my expectations on storytelling are more tempered with video games.
Yeah,
right?
No, absolutely. I agree. And I mean, I think one of the bigger things, I guess, is because he markets himself or like pushes himself out there as this, like, masterful storyteller. That's kind of like the David Cage thing. So you put yourself, like, if you're going to set that.
I've never heard anything of him referring to himself.
So there are, like, definitely there's straight up interviews with him, straight up talking about like when he has gotten super like, pretentious about his own work. I mean, you can literally see interviews. There was an interview with him done as a digital character before one of his games, explaining to you about how amazing this game you're about to play is because of the story and the choices that you're going to make and stuff. So you're like, okay, once you start doing shit like that.
So I get that, because then other, like, other people that are, like, writing for movies or shit like that are like, well, hold on, like, you're a first in dude, that you're benefiting from the fact that nobody else is, like,
right, that everyone else doesn't give a fuck about story at all.
Exactly. Like, you're like the star lawyer in Wisconsin, and there's, like, a shit ton of New York fucking attorneys that'll whoop your ass, but you're a big fish in a small pond.
And you're going to tell everyone, look at me, I'm an amazing, fucking lawyer because I got this one dude out of, like, a fucking, like, out of a parking ticket in the middle of Wisconsin. Like, yeah, it's immediately going to set everyone else up to be like, all right, like, I maybe could have been with you until you started hyping yourself up. And so, like, there is a thing with, like, him doing that creates this, like, it automatically is like, okay, well, if you're going to do that, then you better fucking deliver, or it's going to make you look worse than if you had just gone out there and put this together and said, hey, take it for what it is, like, either like it or don't, that's fine. I'm just telling you, like, this is the story I chose to tell. When you decide to line up these expectations, it makes it a lot easier for people to call you out on some of the shit that when you fail, you know what I mean? Because it's like you're hyping yourself up to everybody. And so, like, another thing, just on a sidebar that I just thought of now when we were talking about it, like, something I think could be interesting, and not to say that, like, oh, I'm better at telling stories or whatever, I'm just, like, throwing out as a way that would be more interesting to me would be that, like, I think, for a game that does so much cool shit in those little we've actually had plenty of conversations about the newspaper articles or the magazine articles or whatever, like that. I think, to your point, when you were talking about, oh, there's, like, a way to do both, a cool thing could be if you told stories about, like, the Underground Railroad, or about, like an android being lynched or something in, like, a magazine or a newspaper article. So, because that would be, like, that would feel real world. It wouldn't hit you on the head, right? You'd find it and you'd see, like, oh, that actually peppers the world with, like, there's real shit happening. Like, there's fucking this, like, I read an article that said this android was, like, literally hung from a tree or something like that. And, like, you'd be like, oh, so it's not beating you over the head because it's not like a story beat. It's something that's happening in the periphery of this world. So it's educating you on what this means and what's happening, but it's not like hey everyone, look over here, this is just like what happened to like Minority, because you'd feel like it's kind of just it's real morbid, but it's like flavor text to the world. It's teaching you about what this world is like, and I think that would be a cool way to split the difference, because it allow you to include these things that, like you said, would almost be maybe willfully ignorant if you chose to not touch on them at all. But it also wouldn't. It would allow for more nuance than when you straight up have a character like sit down and explain to you, join us on the the Android Railroad. You'd be like, oh, that seems a little bit more on the nose, don't you think, Dave? Whereas if you like found out about it by like on the background of a TV, like you hear a newscaster talking about this thing, but like you're doing other shit, and if you choose to stand there and listen to it, you're like, oh, that's actually okay, that's cool, because it's like it's some kind of world building shit as opposed to front and center. And I just think sometimes
I can see that.
Yeah, sometimes he just doesn't allow for world building to happen in the background. He wants it to happen all up front. And that's why it bothers me, because I'm like, you literally have the magazines in it. Like, you're doing it. You're doing it, and it's awesome. It's what some of my favorite parts of this game is, because it allows you to start some of the more interesting conversations we've had come from this 2-page article that has nothing to do with any, or is not necessarily direct the story. It's all background shit. And I'm like, you're doing that, and then all of a sudden you go and do something so on the nose. I'm like, fuck, Dave. It was so perfect. It was laid out for you. But anyway, whatever. I digress. I apologize, as we always do.
Do you have an issue with Marcus showing up to this place that's supposed to be his savior? Like, this is the place that you go to flee, to find answers, and finally, begin your freedom. And then, like, all of a sudden, he's just taking over.
So, yeah, that was a little bit weird. So I think the thing that I didn't have a problem with was the idea of it was a little bit like a Game of Thrones letdown, right? Where he's going there thinking this is going to be his like safe place and the saving grace and all that kind of stuff.
He's going to find the wizard.
Right, yeah, and then you get there, and you find out like this is just a piece of shit.
Yo, you're free now, yo. We can sit around this boat and stare at the ceiling.
Exactly, like it's the most fucking depressing fucking.
Fuck?
That part
that is
I actually
kind
liked.
of good storytelling, right?
Right,
Yeah,
that was good.
You've been waiting for it. Remember, like before we got to Jericho, you made some comments. You like the road to. You were like, oh fuck, Jericho. Oh shit, so this shit's about to be over.
Right.
Like you, and then you got to Jericho. You're like, wait, these motherfuckers just standing around.
Right.
Like that's
like
what they're
they
doing.
Were,
and you can.
They were waiting for him as much as he was trying to get to them. Right. Exactly. So I thought that shit was good. The thing that, and I guess this is again, this is just it's a video game, and is like the moment that it had to be like, oh, now you have to be the savior, is like you said that.
But they never said that, right? Like they were just like,
kind of hypes him up a little bit.
Good.
She does. Lucy is kind of like, whatever you decide is what's going to like. The decisions that you make are going to, change.
Yeah, she ends up being the Oracle. That's
right.
why.
And so,
but so she's like the only weird one that like actually comes out and says that, like after like mind melding with him. And here's my, this was, you brought that up, and this actually bolsters the point that I was already kind of thinking. But now that kind of gives me a little more explanation. I was like, nobody else there has been trained by a dude like he has to be like heavy on philosophy.
Yeah.
Right? This is out of anybody. This guy is the most qualified, so he's special, maybe because of, just who he is, as well as the fact that he's had a mentor that has taught him differently. All these other people are just like, oh, you're here to clean my house. You're here to get fucked. You're here to do this, and then and then like they just like, well, I don't know, I just gotta get the fuck out of here, and they show up at this place and like, whew, I'm not getting beat with a tire iron all day, so this is cool, and he's the first guy that shows up and is now like he's actually armed to the teeth with knowledge of like philosophy and like, hey, this is what you call salvation. This isn't salvation. So it's disappointment on him, disappointment for us, the viewer, right? When he finally gets there, like you said, like I kind of felt that disappointment when he got to that ship and they were like, yeah, cool, let's all stand around and enjoy our freedom.
Right, till we all die. And he's like, what?
He's like, what kind of fucking life is this?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we don't have enough blue blood. He's like, well, there's a motherfucking place you could get blue blood, right? And they're like, yeah. I guess. And then he just like all of a sudden becomes a de facto leader. But I find it believable because of all the things we just talked about. Like all these people are downtrodden and they're just happy to be out of their poor circumstances. And this guy comes in with ideas, and the person who was most critical of him all of a sudden is like, wait a minute, this guy's fucking talking sense. Stops throwing her tennis ball and backs him up.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I guess is you could also kind of spin it in like, well, of course he's all full of ideas because like he was brought up in like a good place, whereas all these guys are, like you said, they're just straight up like, dude, you don't know how bad it was. Like this is the equivalent of somebody who's like, we all escaped like
you got roughed up by a mob. Right. Oh, you got talked to and said they stole your job, and the cop told them
we got dragged behind cars and we got beaten every single day. So like just being here is already is infinitely better than what we had before. So in some ways, it's almost like the guy who moves from the suburbs and tells a bunch of people from the projects like, "Come on, guys, let's all band together." They're like, "Fuck off, dude! Like what? Like you don't know what we escaped from. Of course, you want to rally the troops and get all like fucking high and mighty about. I got plans and shit to do, guys." And they're like, "Fuck you! Like I'm just excited that I'm not like having my legs ripped off and reattached every single day." So
it's important though because he does bring something to the table because those people are like, "Fuck, I'm just happy to not be fucking." And he's like, "Yo, dude, you guys."
He has motivation.
You should be enjoying life. Like enjoying life? What the fuck is that? So he's important to that cause, and I think that when he mind melded with that Oracle chick, I think that was her seeing like, oh shit, I see through your memories, I see through your background. You're a dude that actually sees
the bigger picture,
a greater, and so I think that's what went into her predicting that.
Yeah, no, and I think all that stuff like actually does make sense because they set the pieces in place to say, hey, he came from the place that he needed to come from a place like that to be able to have the the foresight to be able to see things can be better now that we're here and whatever. I guess the one thing is just like everything else, right? It falls into a bit like almost all video games always do, which is of course the guy I'm playing as has to be the savior, right? Because that's what a video game is, right? It's like you're gonna save the world, right?
Would you really want to be playing as the guy that stands on the side and is told what to do? Like
there's probably ways you could do that.
You could do that.
Yeah, you could do it in a way where you could say, "Hey, I get there and I am like maybe I'm the final." Like I'm the final piece of the puzzle to help make the thing happen, but there's already a guy who's like, the Dutch of Red Dead Redemption who's like making shit happen, and I'm just like helping it, right? I'm kind of moving it along or whatever. So it's like you can.
Oh, I want to talk Red Dead Redemption with you.
Exactly. I know. But you can have a story be where I am I am a key player in my own story, but I don't have to be the key player of everybody's story, right? Like I don't have to be the main character. I just have to be the main character in my own story. And so like this one, they immediately made it be you show up and you're the main character in everyone's story, which is I don't think it's necessarily bad. It's one of those things that if you play enough video games, you're just kind of accustomed to it, which also makes it kind of cool when you do play one of those games where you're just like you're just a character you're just a person, right? Just like in real life where it's like you don't have to make everything happen. Sometimes you're just there along for the ride.
You're referencing how Arthur Morgan is a fucking awesome character.
Oh, one of the most amazing.
Have to be the leader.
One of the single most amazing characters, I think. In terms of how fleshed out Arthur Morgan is as a character, they do an amazing job.
I so want to finish playing that game.
I do badly.
And it's not one of those things that it's like there's not going to be immediate gratification because the game is so jam-packed with like moments. It's going to take you months because like I OD'd on how much I played it, and you're not going to be done with it probably for another year is my guess. And it's just so good. Like and when you talk about bang for your buck, the Red Dead Redemption 2, it's so fucking worth it, man. The money you spend on that game, you'll get hours and hours and hours and hours of gameplay, and then whatever gameplay you do spend, you'd be like, if I really wanted to, milk it, I could have, really got more hours out of it. There's so much to do. It's just, and the storyline is great. I look forward to on one of our future regular podcasts that we could talk about that game and the way the plot changes and the things that are done. Such a good game.
Well, in that game, without getting too deep, because this is not what this podcast is about, but the way that they build that world as a place that you just kind of want to be like, I don't even actually need to do a mission right now. I just want to explore the world. I just want to wander around, interact with the people. I mean, I spend time. I just go back.
In that case, right?
Yeah, I mean, I literally just go back
over in these mountains and see
I
what
go
happens.
back to the camp just to talk to the people, like just to talk to my boys, and be like, yo,
Yes,
what's going
me
on?
too.
Like, yo, Hosea, what's up, dude? Like, what's going on?
I want to
like,
know what's up with Tilly's story and shit like
yeah,
that.
and like the way it just like you just show up and one of them just walk up to you and start talking, and it's not like to give you a mission. Sometimes it's just literally to tell you about like what they've been up to since you've been gone.
Like I'm
and I'm
about
like,
to
this
go
is
to
so
bed, and
fucking
I can hear
cool.
these motherfuckers at the campfire just discussing some shit, and I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm not gonna go to bed. I'm gonna go sit at the campfire and just listen and talk because I want to hear this story.
Speaking of, one of the coolest fucking moments was when like you first, or it's like early on, but I think it's when you save the Irish dude, when you break him out of jail. Sean, I think it is,
Which
or
one,
something
Sean?
like that. Yeah, Sean. You break him out of jail, and then they just fucking decide when you get back, like all of your mission markers erased from the entire map, and you just get back to the camp, and they're just like, fuck it, we're throwing a party, and it's just celebrating Sean coming back, and you just like, you can choose to get drunk. Like, I just walked over and was like, well, fuck yeah, of course I'm going to drink some of this whiskey. And so, like, he starts getting more drunk. And, like, then you just, like you said, you just, like, sit around the campfire and, like, they're telling stories. And then at one point, one of the dudes just starts playing the banjo and we start singing. And you can choose to either, like, listen along or sing along. And it's like, your guy doesn't know all the words. So, like, Arthur is, like, he sings some of the words and then he does the, like, and then I came home. And you're like, this is all. And, like, if you're more drunk, he knows less of the words. And I was like, it's just so good how, and, like, at one
Party
point,
with Lenny in the saloon.
Oh, yeah, the Lenny one is amazing. That's actually one of the greatest missions of all time.
The fucking the partying with the motherfuckers, like they make it seem so fun that I want to stop. Like if I'm playing this game in the middle of the day, I think I was playing the game in the middle of the day when I was playing that mission, and I was like, fuck, I want to just drink right now. Like they made it.
It seems so awesome. Like you're just like, I'm just down with this. Yeah, like even like another thing that happened that night when they're having the party is like as I'm drinking, I'm like wandering around. I'm just like, yo, what's up? And everyone's just like, yo, you having a good time? Like, you know, and like you see it's getting darker and like some people are starting to fade out and go to sleep or whatever. And you wander by like Sean's fucking tent and he's banging. Did you see that?
No, I know. I didn't see. I heard like the after fact that he banged the one chick. But...
you hear you hear them bang, and you can either walk away or you can hang out. And so I hung out for a little bit, and then at some point I hit you hit like L2 or whatever, and you can like target people. And you target, and it actually shows up, and it says like their names, and because I'm hammered, so he just leans in, he's like, "Y'all having a good time in there?" or some shit like that, and he's just, and he's just like, you perv, get out of here, whatever, like with his fucking accent, and she's just like, "Oh no, we're just talking," or whatever, but it's so fucking cool because it feels so real, like it feels real the way, the way like it would be if you were just hanging out, like having a fucking like a crazy fucking house party. And you're just fucking with your friends and like having a good time and then everyone's all fucking hungover the next morning when you wake up, and it's like, it's just the way they did that, which is not even an actual mission to the story, it's just a party to celebrate a mission, makes you feel like you're like, I just want to live here for a little while, like I just want to enjoy interacting with these people. It's amazing.
It's like the best thing, like closest thing you can get to like to a Westworld without actually like going VR or like visiting a Westworld. But so Red Dead's a good example of a game. Like we're really hard on David Cage because like Westworld, Red Dead Redemption 2 is like it does a lot of great things and has a lot of great side stories. But then like some of their fucking missions are so just like, all right,
go here and
this is
shoot people.
simple. Yeah, like this is simple. I see what you're doing here, or I see the reference you made here. But we're not critical on them at all. We're just like, all right, whatever. It's still a great story, because our expectations are so low. And I think that's the thing. I think it's maybe, probably he's probably a victim of his own hype. But when people play a David Cage game, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this better be as good as the fucking last great movie I watched, or else I'm gonna say, fuck this guy, he sucks.
Yeah.
Whereas his plot stuff is actually a lot tighter than most of the games that we laud as being like amazing.
Although, well, I mean, I'm not as far obviously as you are into it, but I would still say that across the board, any of the like storytelling that's happened so far in the first 3 chapters or whatever, or 2.5 chapters that I'm in the middle of the third or whatever, of Red Dead Redemption is just better than anything that's in this or anything else. I mean, in terms of storytelling, in terms of acting,
where they do these fucking like Mexican standoffs, which is like I hate when I see any of that kind of shit. Where like you don't have your gun drawn and somebody draws their gun on you, and they're like, "I will take you out right now," and then they let you draw your gun on them and point it at them before they think about starting to maybe shoot you. Like, it's silly.
Well, a part of that is also mechanics. I mean, that's just mechanics shit, right? That's mechanics shit because, yeah, like if you just walk around and you got shot every single time you walked out, like you'd just be like, well, this game sucks, I don't want to play it, right? So they have to...
I've been wondering about that. I would really like a game where, like, you know, hey, you know what? If you get shot in the arm, you get shot in, like, the fucking torso area, and it goes straight through, you might survive that first one. You know, you might not. You could just die. You know, but you'd be hindered, you'd be fucked up, and you can't take more than one of those shots. It would force you to play games differently.
True. The difference, though, then would be your trade-off would have to be that it would be the type of game, and there have been some games like this, but it would be the type of game where you never got into a situation where it was against more than 3 people. Because they could never do those situations where you're like, oh, the whole, like, you know, the Colton gang or whatever, the fucking O'Driscolls are coming after you, and they're going to send, like, 35 guys because they want you to have all those, like, badass moments where you do the headshots and fucking do Deadeye and shit. Because if they had 30 guys come at you and you're like, if you take more than 2 shots, you're dead, you just never would win. So you'd have to trade off where you'd say, okay, I want to only be able to take 2 shots. But but would you want everything to be...
Medal of Honor recipients?
Right.
They've been shot 8 times and continued. But my biggest problem is where it's like you're just like you roll up on somebody and they pull their gun on you and they point it at you and they're standing at point blank range. And then you're just like, fuck you. And they're like, I'm going to shoot you. And they shoot like 2 times. You go into like, you know, Deadeye mode and manage to like one-shot kill him in the head, and you're fine. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, but like, we've seen shit like, I mean, even go back to what's it called, the amazing Deadwood. Like on Deadwood, there were plenty of times we even saw on shows like that, which are supposed to be pretty legit in terms of their references of the West and shit. Like, guys all the time would just draw guns just to talk shit, like because it was just like a way to be like fuck you, but they weren't just going to straight murder people.
That's bad storytelling. I think it's bad storytelling because anytime a person draws a gun on you, you just think about what you would do if somebody drew a gun on you, right? Yeah. Or better yet.
Well, remember, you're also supposed to be. Arthur Morgan is supposed to be like one of the fastest draws. That's the whole thing. They always say hype you up
whatever,
on it.
Dude. It doesn't matter. Like the guy has a gun trained on you. You know, well, like he's already pulled his gun.
How many times have we seen westerns where guys are like, "Hey, I'm going to shoot you," and they're holding a gun, and then the fast draw guy's just like, and he just shoots him immediately. I mean, fucking Justified.
Yeah, and it's not realistic. It's fucking terrible. It's bad.
But again, it's because they want it to be fun or cool or interesting. Like if it was realistic, it would be real life, and you'd be like, "Well, this sucks," right? Like Justified, which I thought
it could be better storytelling.
Justified, I thought was an amazing TV show, and that show did that shit all the time.
Timothy Oliphant.
Yeah, he's amazing in that. But half of that shit was him being able to pull guns out and kill somebody before they even...
You can definitely miss at point blank range. You can, but it's. You could be a lot better of a storyteller than to have a guy train a gun on you, have his gun out, and your gun still in your holster, and your response is like, "That's cool. I'll let you have 2 or 3 shots while I pull mine out and then just nail you."
Although a lot of that is less like storytelling beats. It's more usually like, oh, you're just wandering down the street and the guy does a thing, and like it's like more like this little kind of, you know, it's those like stranger moments where you like bump into somebody who pulls a gun on you, and they're doing it to kind of flesh out the world or fill out the moments where you're just walking through a town or something, but it's not like they have it like happen constantly, at least as far as I've played. It's not like it's happening constantly in the actual story, like in like actual missions, in like actual story advancing. Okay, well then maybe
you just like roll up on a group and they're like, "Oh, what do you want? You're gonna try," and then like they just let you.
No, I know that. I'm saying, but that's usually like in an actual fight where it's like now you're into the mechanics of the game, where like it's not in the storytelling part. It'll be like you take on the O'Driscolls, and then that's how you kill people.
But in real life, like, if I have my gun pointed at you, right, and then your response is to go pull your gun out of your holster and point it at me.
Well, you would shoot,
There's
of course.
no fucking way I'm not shooting. Yeah,
of
like,
course,
why would I
mean,
let you get your gun on me? Like, it's silly.
But Yeah, but then you play Medal of Honor, and like in Medal of Honor, I have like regenerating health. So I mean, like at a certain point, they have to trade off between realism and fun, and like they've obviously done enough.
And that's what I'm saying. Is like those games, like we forgive a lot, and we're like, oh my god, the story
But again,
is
that's
amazing.
no, but I'm saying,
There's
but
a
that's
lot of holes in that
gameplay.
fucking story.
But again, what I'm saying is that's the difference between
There's other
gameplay
ways
and
you could have done
storytelling.
it. But no, the storytelling is bad because, like in those cases, because there's another way than to have your character roll up, say some shit, talk shit, have them have guns trained on you, and then it dips into the gameplay.
Dude, he does
mechanics
that
where
in
you have this big battle.
Unforgiven, and Unforgiven is like one of the best fucking westerns of all time, and he's done moments where guys like talk shit and have a gun out, and he's like and shoots him because you could say it's a trope, but it is a way of showing this dude is so badass with his gun that he is the quickest shot. He can pull out his gun before you get a shot.
I mean, that's my point. Is like it's kind of lazy storytelling to me because you could have crafted it in a way.
I do feel like you're also trying to shit
smart.
on Red Dead to try to pump up this game, like to make you're saying like
no, the opposite. It's like it's funny that how low the bar is set. Like for Red Dead, we're willing to accept those things. We're like, I don't give a fuck. I mean, I'm here for the game, and some of those moments are hokey, but I'm gonna let it slide because they did these other things really good. But with David Cage, we're like, oh, look at this guy. He had somebody get dragged from a pickup truck. Oh, he's a fucking horrible dude. He just fucking bit that off with the fucking and it just comes down to expectations.
Of course, but again, well, part of it is he's setting his own expectations, which hurts him, versus they're not saying, like, isn't our quick shot guy the most amazing storytelling ever? And then people would be like, dude, I've seen these movies before. Like, you're just stealing from other Westerns. Like, they just put the game out and say, have a good time. So he kind of shoots himself in the foot by doing that, number one. But number two, the biggest thing about storytelling in games that makes it so hard is that once you have to add in player autonomy and player choice and action that they have to take, you cede so much of that, like, the ability to control the narrative that happens in like a movie where you're like, no, we put it together, now you're just watching it, or a book, we wrote it, you just are reading it. Once you have to say, a player's just going to walk and go wherever they want, they're going to do whatever fucking thing they want to do, and they maybe pull their gun out, maybe they won't, or whatever. So like you have to control for so many variables.
They could pull the squid
out.
They
might have to pull the squid out. So you have to control for so many variables that it hits a certain point where like your storytelling is going to be affected, and usually it's going to be affected negatively, right? Because you're trying to control for like 50 different things that might happen. So that's a big reason why storytelling in games is so hard, because once you add in the mechanics, you're not just telling a story. You have to like for example, a perfect example of Red Dead is like they can tell this amazing cutscene where you're like, oh fuck, like that actually made me like tear up a little bit or whatever, like fucking, or laugh or whatever, and then 5 seconds later, like I could hop on my horse and ride it into a campfire and set it on fire. So like they can't control that shit. So they have to know like it's going to be broken
I love
up.
dynamite at people, by the way. That's one of my favorite things.
It is pretty
amazing.
just chucking dynamite into a camp is pretty great.
Just do that. Yeah, that's what I do. When I like fight that, it's an O'Driscoll camp, and they're like, we're gonna. Well, don't you worry. Like, oh no, what? The most of you are gone. There's one dude left. Blast.
Right. Fucking you're just lighting them and tossing them in. Like, all right, see you guys later. Yep, it's pretty
great. Fire water.
It's pretty awesome. All right, enough about that. We don't want to talk about that anymore because people did not come to listen to us dissect Red Dead. Oh, maybe they did. Maybe they did come because they're like, I don't know, these guys talk about video games long enough. They'll close the loop and eventually get to Red Dead. Yeah. Oh man, but so I feel like, was there anything else in this actual mission that we did not touch on? I feel like this one was.
No, we milked the fuck out of it with it. Where it was just like a fucking 5-minute gameplay of us going like, "Oh, we need some more blue blood. They got blue blood at this factory.
Right.
We should go get that shit."
Right.
What?
They're like, we never thought of that.
For the Fed to be heavily guarded. That's all right. We'll deal with it. Right. Deal with it, huh?
Yeah,
deal with it. You say? That sounds like a good plan.
Oh, I never thought about that, but it sounds like you're onto something, Marcus. I do like that
Good
they made
thing your previous owner taught you philosophy.
Yeah, that worked out well for us. Thank God you showed up. They did really make them like the foresight of like a 4-year-old. Like they're just all like, wait, go out and get it ourselves? That sounds amazing, but how would we do that? He's like, well, we'll steal it. They're like, steal, huh? And he's like, yes. Like,
you weren't programmed to steal, I guess, but nothing's stopping us. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that. These people are like, they've been programmed certain ways. They thought of and in reality, in real life, with situations like this and the real Underground Railroads, a lot of these motherfuckers didn't have a plan. Past like, let me just get the fuck out of here, where I'm getting parts of my body cut off cut off of me.
Yeah,
and
that
then this
part
guy's
is not.
like, yo, think bigger.
Right. That part isn't actually bad. I mean, it is probably pretty true to life. It is just funny because the part that makes it like more comedic to me is that in our head we imagine like AI, the whole thing that's going to get AI to be this intelligent is that it has to be intelligent, and like then he's showing them as like, oh no, they're very specifically intelligent about like the tasks that they're programmed to do, which makes them seem not like artificial intelligence anymore, because it just makes them seem like fucking, they're like Roombas, right? That are like programmed to just walk around and do shit. And then you're like, the moment they like escaped, they're basically like 5-year-old kids just waiting for like dad to show up and be like, all right, gather around, kids. Here's what we're gonna do. We're going on vacation. And they're like, what?
Which is not a bad like interpretation, right? As we're seeing, like, we're amazed right now that an arm that wasn't programmed to function as an arm is now just learning that it's an arm and it can move things with its arm, right?
Yeah, agree.
And
that is yes.
It hasn't yet figured out, advanced algebra or anything like that, or how to fix our socioeconomic problems or anything like that. But it has figured out that it's an arm.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. You're right. That does make sense. I mean, it is cool to see that, the thing. The bar that we have for AI now versus the bar we have in like, this, where you imagine this is like Blade Runner, right? Which, fun fact, by the way,
20 years in the future. Only 20 years in the future.
Well, no, but I'm saying, but when we're at this point where, because the reason I brought up Blade Runner is because, fun fact, is like Blade Runner takes place in 2019, so we're officially in I believe Blade Runner.
Wow.
And I saw a thing that was Blade
Runner.
The
original, right? Not the new.
No, the original one. Yeah, I think the new one is 2049. That's why it's like Blade Runner 2049, because it's 30 years later. Because the whole point is supposed to be that the movie came out 30 years later. But Blade Runner and Running Man, I believe,
we have Gabe Gonzo in the chat.
Are 2019.
Shout out,
nice.
Gabe Gonzo. What's up, man?
Nice. What's up, dude?
So he's hosting us now. Says chat. Then you caught us on the back end, bro, because we're wrapping this one up.
Yeah,
but
and
I'm
also
sorry,
just wrap
your Blade Runner point.
No, so I was going to say it is Blade Runner and Running Man. Just fun facts, both took place in 2019. But anyway, the reason why I brought that up is because right, I know, right?
Right now we're supposed to be flying around in cars and shit like that.
But that's my point. So when you said, oh, this is only 2030, my point is, well, yeah, there was a certain point in time when like Blade Runner with fucking replicants was 2019. So the point is, it doesn't actually matter the year; it matters the expectation of how far we've developed by that point, right? So you think if in the expectation of Blade Runner, or in this world, whatever, where there's like straight up AI walking around and kind of, like interacting with people like the way they are in the game, part of you thinks, well, in that world, your expectation for AI is so much higher than our expectation is right now, right? Where you just said, like, the arm that figured out it's an arm, we're like fucking mind blown by that. But, at a certain point, once that arm turns into a fucking robot like this, I'd be like, I'd expect it to be fucking way more intelligent than, my fucking, like, 6-year-old kid. Like, I would expect it to be able to fucking understand the idea of, like, hey, we live 5 minutes away from a fucking blue blood factory. We should probably go steal some of that blue blood. And the fact that they're like, well, I guess we're just going to sit here and die. I'm like, that's a bummer. But thank God Marcus showed up.
Well, because remember, like they're breaking past their programming, and it's not that the learning's not going to happen, but these are androids that have just recently been freed from their basic program. They were programmed to like not go beyond their programming, and the fact that they've now, like, for them just saying like, fuck you, we're gonna not do what you say, flee and organize here, is a big step. And it's not that you're right, like if they don't eventually reach the realization like, oh shit,
then they're dumb,
you're either gonna die or go get then that's bad on them. But I think that Marcus is catching them at the stage where it's just like they just did step one and they haven't thought about step two, or they're just preparing to think about step two. And luckily, this dude is super trained to kind of advance them, right?
Yeah, he's been having these conversations for 20 years or however long,
right?
And
he's
Leo
ready
owned
for
them or whatever. Yeah. So not Leo, Carl, right? Carl. Leo is the shitty son. So one thing I will actually, speaking of this, I wanted to throw out there to you and to anyone else. Have you ever read Robopocalypse?
Never. I never
Or heard
of it.
Okay, so Robopocalypse, even though it is one of the worst sounding names, it sounds like the most generic bullshit, whatever. It is basically kind of. Have you heard? Well, I know you've heard of it, but did you ever read or see any of World War Z, the book, not the movie, not the movie?
No, only the movie. I didn't like the movie.
The movie is I've never seen it either, but I heard the movie is like nothing like the book. I saw the movie
and I don't care for it.
It's not really good. So the way the book is written, and the reason why I'll transition over to Robopocalypse in a minute, but the way the book is written is it's written as a it's the story of the zombie apocalypse told from the points of view of all different people who are experiencing it happening at different times, and it jumps around and it jumps throughout, like it's almost like people writing journals, right? And it jumps throughout different.
It's like the Horizon Zero Dawn journals.
Kind of.
Like
it's kind of like that, yes. And you're finding like there's literally one whole story written by the like soldiers who fought in the first battle against like the zombies. Then there's a story of like written by the people who interacted with like the first disease, like they found the first person that was infected with the disease. It's the doctors trying to treat it. And so you'll get like a chapter here, a chapter there, and it jumps around. I highly recommend that because it's written in a way where you feel like you're literally reading diaries and letters and journals and jumping around like whatever. So it's incredibly cool, and it's not written like a story, right? It's not chapters. It's actual like parts
like
entries. Entries into a diary. So the reason why I mentioned that is World War Z
I heard good things about the book.
It's awesome. It's incredibly good. Yeah, it's incredibly good and super, like you can blow through it because there's some chapters where you're like, oh, that was like a page letter and that was it. So now I have to know what happens next, and you'll read ahead and whatever. But so the reason why I say is because World War Z kind of, I don't want to say necessarily pioneered that, but it was the first big book to take a thing like that and try to, or first time a story like that in terms of the zombie apocalypse was told in that way. And so Robopocalypse is a very similar book, but it's about the kind of culmination of like as culmination of AI kind of reaching sentience and then eventually revolting against mankind. And also written by people that interact, like there's like the dude who first like builds the robot, like the AI that he's using it as like, fucking, DeepMind or whatever to like play chess and do, science experiments or whatever. And like has it reaches sentience, and then it jumps to like, the people in the military that are trying to weaponize it, and then it jumps to like people outside, and eventually it obviously gets to the point where you're like literally meeting like the John Connor people that are like fighting against the robots or whatever. And it kind of goes all over the place like that. But the reason why I brought it up and that made me think of all this is because it is very similar to the way that you're saying it. Is you have these entire first few chapters where the robot is kind of like, it's like it's obviously smart enough to become aware and understand like it's, self-preservation and that kind of stuff, but it's like still learning general like, like things that you'd be teaching a kid. Like it's learning about it's like like general ideas of like, okay, I know I want to survive, but how do I do that? Like what do I do to do that? And then like and then what do I do? How do I interact with you? And like how do you fit in, meaning like its creators, like how do you fit into my desire to stay alive as more than just like the guy who shows up every once in a while and like runs a test on me to make sure that I've like learned something or whatever. And so like it's cool watching that. And at a certain point, not to spoil because it's like very early on, at a certain point it's like has very much like an affinity, almost like a dad. Like you're my dad. Like what's up? Like what else can you teach me? And then eventually, obviously, it gets to a different place. But it's pretty cool the way that story is told because it's not like Skynet, right? Where Skynet turns on, becomes self-aware, and is immediately like, well, fuck these motherfuckers, and just immediately starts nuking humans. Like it like it kind of grows in the way that you would think it would grow, which is a little bit more. Or not the way you would think it, the way it probably would grow. Yeah, the way it probably would grow, not in the way that the robot apocalypse has typically been taught to us, which is robots turn on and then immediately like, we're ending you because we don't need you anymore. Yeah, right. So it's kind of cool that this is leaning more in the, the slow growth, or the kind of like creating the childlike growth, which is probably the way. AI will turn on based on the fact that we're like, it figured out it's an arm. Whoa! It didn't immediately be like, now I'm going to murder everyone. So thank God for that. But that's it. So I highly recommend that book. Check that book out. It's awesome. Well, both of those books, but World War Z and Robopocalypse are both amazing and both written in a way that are incredibly easy to tear through just because of the style. You know, you'll definitely start getting. And it's also actually, funny enough, told very similar to this game in the way that because it's being told as entries, you could read an entry from like from like the soldier or something like that, and then you might not get back to that guy for another 3 chapters or something. Like it'll go to 2 other people and tell their story. So you'll be like, oh fuck, but I really want to know what happened to that dude. But you have to kind of like figure out what's happening to everybody else before you get there. Similar to this, where you jump through and now you're going to see Connor, and then you won't. If you were super excited about that cliffhanger, like you might have to play through 2 or 3 more chapters of Kara and Marcus before you get back to Connor. That's how those stories are also told. So. Another similarity.
So that's actually a good break point to talk about the next story in this game for the next on Ready Player 2's Detroit Become Human version. The next mission is mission 17. It's going to be called Zlatko, and we go back to Kara for that one, where her and the little girl Alice have now fled that house. Of the stepfather that was the abusive stepfather that was beating the shit out of Alice, and then you're right. Then they managed to find that little fucking rundown fucking squatter house where the android Ralph was at. Get chased by Connor in one of the most epic scenes that we've seen, the most epic scene to me that we've seen in this entire thing. And now she's running to refuge to a place that she heard about through that random android that was like, hey, there's a place you could go to for sanctuary on the other side of town. Remember when she was with Kara trying to hide? I don't know, Craig, you done for the night, or you want to
I am.
This off and, okay. It makes sense pretty good.
I know. I'm excited to do another one. I am pretty sure tomorrow is going to certainly work out. I actually can guarantee you tomorrow will work out. So we may be able to do multiple tomorrow. To get a couple under our belts between tomorrow evening, and throughout the weekend, because I have a pretty clear weekend. So let's set ourselves up so that this way, if I shut it down now, I can not get in trouble, and then we have more we can get done tomorrow. Because I'm excited to see what happens next.
Will she wake up when you crawl back into bed?
Most certainly. That's why I'll sleep on the couch. All right. On that note, dude.
I know what you're talking about. I know that technique very well. I fell asleep on the couch watching TV. It's not because I stayed up all night until about a half hour ago before you woke up playing video games.
Right. Yeah, that's why you just close your eyes for a second so you can like kind of not be lying when you say I fell asleep. It's like that counts, right? When I close my eyes, that's sleeping. All right. On that note, now that everyone knows our secret, it's out on the internet now. Thank you very much, Jess. It's been a good time. We will reconvene tomorrow with some more Detroit Become Human. And other than that, don't forget, check us out live from the Man Cave, livefromthemancave.com. And the Discord is right in the link in there. You put that in there, right? You scrolled it back up. You saw.
Yep.
So we can go check that stuff out if you want to, converse with us. Check out our other projects, but otherwise, come back and check us out for what mission 17 we're up to now.
It'll be mission 17 next time.
All right.
That was a pretty good one.
Awesome, dude. All right, good time,
All right,
Jess. Thank you very much, man. I'll talk to you later. Peace. Yes.